Okay, it's 12 and 1 minute. So let's get started. Thank you very much for joining this first meeting of the RQAP Study Group GCP. We had already one meeting that was a joint session run by Melanie, talking about the psychology of taking long exams, things that may be difficult for us. And when she asked, when was the last time you did such a long test? I was trying to remember myself, and then I remembered, well, at my college days and my student years, there were no quizzes. So never, ever, I was sitting for a 3-hour test in my life. So that would be a brand new experience if I went for that. Probably it's not so unknown for you, but still it's good to hear her tips. The session is also recorded. The sessions usually, they have a kind of little bit of delay. All of them are recorded, but it's not available on the same day. So first of all, let me, well, before maybe I start sharing the screen, can everyone tell us, okay, what do you expect from the meetings? What are your expectations? Why did you sign up for the study groups? It could be a poll, but it's not. So just feel free to unmute, put on your camera if you wish. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And just tell us, what is your expectation? What do you want to get from the study groups?
It's Elmi here, Camilla. For me, the expectation for these study meetings are actually where if I've got questions or other people have questions, where we can actually share this and see where are we going, what to expect with the examination and all of those things. So that's my expectation, where I can share things or hear what other people are sharing with regards to what's their expectations of the examination, and where you guys can say, okay, no, that is not a real expectation, or this is more real situation, or what you can get in the exam.
Thank you. And where are you joining from?
From South Africa.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. This is Awesome Alex speaking. I'm speaking to you from San Francisco. So my expectations are, because GCP is such a vast area, I'm looking to kind of zone in on tools and the tools that people are using to study, and anything else that may be a quick study along the way.
Thank you. And where are you joining from?
I'm calling you from San Francisco.
Lovely. We have international audience. I love that.
Okay.
Anyone else who is willing to share expectations and your location?
Okay, this is Grace. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm joining from Florida.
And what do you expect from the study groups?
So from the study group, of course, my expectations will be just to have an idea of get the lining of how the questions are kind of composed and what to expect. I understand that we're using the different regulations, but in terms of how the questions are formulated, no, it's multiple choice, but the line of questioning is, I've already seen the samples, but wanted to see from your perspective how those are going to be somewhat structured in terms of expectations.
Thank you. Anyone else to continue?
I'll just follow up with what Grace just said. My name is Morella. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm also here just to kind of get the idea of the structure and hear everybody's thoughts as well. And with everything changing with, federal regulations and the fast pace of things going on right now, I just wanted to kind of make sure I'm aligned with what's expected on the exam. So yeah.
I know the administration changes a lot of things, but still GCP remains the same, fortunately. And the main Code of Federal Regulations is still the same. So we are lucky. Thank you. Anyone else? We have still 2 more people if you are willing to share. But you do not have to if you don't want to. So let's get started. Let me start sharing my screen. This side.
Hi everyone, my name's, before we just get started, my name is Lydia Brunk. I am an SQA staff member and I manage the RQAP program. I am just here in the study groups to provide logistical support, but I did, before we get started, also want to note, just since you're all talking about your expectations for the study group, just wanted to offer a quick note that these study groups are not affiliated with the Council on Professional Registration for best practices reasons. So these are not official CPR study groups. They are organized by your lovely faculty unofficially for the purpose of helping you get together and prepare for the exam.
Thank you, Lydia. Yes, Lydia's help is essential. She is the magic person behind the scene who can resolve everything and anything. And it would be very difficult to manage without her support. So we are very thankful that she's also committed to help the study groups, and she is here with us today. So today's topic is quality management support, planning, and developing procedures. And we have Jenny, Klaus, and Pam to support the faculty. They are faculty members. They've been faculty members for quite some time. And Jenny also remembers the previous study groups that were running a couple of years ago. So I'm very happy to have her today. And I'm really thankful for all those who, despite the bank holiday in the States, found the time to join today. So let's talk a little bit about exam writing, logistics, good to know, and some helpful hints. We will be repeating this part at every meeting. And it might be that you notice a detail that you missed before, or you realize, yeah, that's something I need to look at closer. So hopefully it's not a waste of time. The exam time frame this spring is 24th March to 26th of April. So you will, once you get an acceptance, you can look for your for a place, the testing center that is close to you to make it as easy as possible for you in terms of logistics. It's also possible to do the exam online, but it has quite strict requirements. So it's preferred, if possible, that people go to the testing centers. And there are many of them all around the world. So don't worry thinking they are only in the US. No, they are not. They are really all around the world. There are 165 multiple choice questions. 15 are being tested. So they are not counted, but you won't know which ones these are. I really suggest that you focus on all the questions same way, and you don't try to guess, okay, maybe this is the best question. That would not help anything. You have 3 hours and a half, which means about 1.5 minutes per question. Why this is ample time for some questions that are very easy, and don't be deceived by the practice exam, which is really easy, but it's also aging. It's a kind of thing that has, well, it's not so current as we would like to see, but this is only to give a hint how it might look like, how it might feel. And it's based on the same logic as the real exam. But what I heard from many colleagues who passed the exams in the past saying the real exam is much more difficult. Based on the practice exam, we did not expect that. We were surprised. So take it just as a sample, really, to practice. It's free of charge. So don't think that the real exam is as simple as the practice exam. So study hard, and don't think like, okay, I passed the practice exam easily, so I don't need to prepare. That would be a mistake. If your first language is other than English, you may buy additional time, 1 to 2 hours. It may be a really good thing because you might not be sure about some phrasing of a question. You may think like, I need more time to understand what the question is about. So if your first language is other, seriously consider getting some additional time. The exam covers the Code of Federal Regulations, 21 CFR, ICH E6 guideline, and still, although we have step 4 of the R3, don't worry, that's not going to be there, because still it hasn't been endorsed by many regulatory agencies. I think the only one is the European Medicines Agency, that was on 26th of January. But MHRA decided to fully adopt ICH E6R3 next year when all the changes in the regulations are ready and finalized. And with FDA, things are a little bit unclear, so I don't even guess. Although the regulators were part of the ICH working party, and they were also releasing the drafts for public consultation practically the same time as ICH, there might be different reasons for having the date more in the future. And also the other thing which is covered is 21 CFR Part 11, electronic records and electronic signatures. For a very obvious reason, we talk about GCP, meaning clinical trials, and we have so many electronic records. We use electronic signatures. So the requirements per Part 11 are also part of the exam. You have the candidate handbook, which we definitely recommend to read, plus the suggested materials there, other resources provided by the SQA. Learn the regulations. Your regulation might be different. You might be like in South Africa or in India or in another country. So the FDA regulations, that's not your daily bread and butter, but it's a good thing to be quite sure that you study and learn what it is all about. And there are some differences, of course, from other regulations. There are also some differences from the ICH E6. It will be more aligned now with the R3, but it's still something to come. And it's not currently the same, like in Europe, for example, the principal investigator can be only a physician, while in US, that's not required. And it's going to change also in UK next year. So it's going to be more aligned, more harmonized, more open, but always the medical care, of course, should be under the responsibility of a physician. Now, read the preambles. The preambles or the introduction to a guideline or to a regulation always gives you the idea why it was written. What is the purpose? What is the ultimate goal? So this is quite important for good understanding, and it also tells you what is outside the scope. So to have exact idea what it covers, what it does not cover, that will be helpful for your preparation. Answer questions during the exam based on the most conservative approach. Why? That's how it's been, simply. So it may be different. Your organization may have bigger risk appetite, may have more flexibility, may offer different ways to achieve the same goal, and it's perfectly fine. But for the purpose of the exam, put on very conservative glasses and see what would be the most rigorous possible answer. Also, on the study group website, on the Connect page, you can find out tips of your peers who took the exam before. If you scroll completely down, you will find them there. And it's good to read them because some of them express, yeah, I was surprised by this or that. Or I was happy to find out that something else. So hearing the feedback will also give you more flavor. How the exam is perceived when people are really go there and sit for. Read the questions carefully, always. It's very easy, happens to me all the time, like there is not or no or what would not be. And I skip the no or not and answer the exact opposite. And of course, it's not correct. That happens to all of us. So reading very carefully the question and also reading very carefully the answers. If the question looks complicated, depending on your strategy, you may decide to skip it and come back later. The reason is simple. If I spend a lot of time on one question, I may be short of time and miss 20, which is a lot. If I answer all the questions I'm able to answer straight away, I may go and see like 5 more difficult questions. So compare 5 to 20 and you see immediately the difference. Watch your time. You will have a counter time calculator on your screen. So you will see it. You will see the time that you are still left. And it's good to take a look every now and then to see how you are progressing. But don't panic if you feel like I should be halfway through and I'm still just about 40% and it's half time. It's very easy to start panicking for this or that reason. And Melanie was talking about it. Calm down, find a way that works for you, breathe deeply, count to 10 or 20 or 100 or whatever. Or you may have your other ways when you need to calm down. So just be sure that you deploy what you have, calm down, because panicking won't help you. Most likely, it will drive you to make mistakes. If you are totally unsure, guess. Usually you may straight away exclude 2 options out of the 4 because you will say, this is clearly not correct. So you have 2 left. And then if I don't know and just guess, I have 50% chance of getting it right. Of course, 50% chance of getting it wrong, but better to guess than to answer the question. Watch the keywords. There are some keywords in the questions and keywords in the answers that will guide you toward the correct answer. Apply logic. Most of the time, if you just say, what would be the logical thing to do at this situation? Or what would my common sense tell me to do? Most of the time, you get it right. Choose strategy. Melanie was talking about that. I'm not going to repeat that. And then don't second guess your answers. If I have my answer, I have time, I go back and say, is this really correct? Is this not correct? Maybe it's not right. Most of the time I got it right, and then second guessing, I make a mistake. So welcome again. Planning and developing procedures. Let's talk a little bit about procedures. We have them everywhere. Okay, here I put R3, but it's not part, again, I repeat, it's not part of the exam. But if you already read it, you will find out that many things have the same logic in R2 and R3. For example, approach to documentation, approach to handling risks. The thought process itself, like the typical the plan, do, check, act, would write down the intention, perform the procedure, check for conformance. Does it work? Do people do what the procedures ask? And is the result good? If it's not, then it's time to review it again. Why it's not working? Maybe get feedback and revise, improve, update. So you have the process improvement. The plan, do, check, act is actually not a cycle. Imagine it as a spiral that goes up, not just as going in circles all the time, again and again. That's not the point. It's just the visual part that does not allow to make it more clear or more representative of this improvement and the desired way to get better. I put the R3, but also R2 has the same definition of compliance. This does not change. With the protocol, SOPs, GCP, and or applicable regulatory requirements by an investigator, institution, member of the sponsor staff / CRO, because that's the extended hand, should lead to prompt action, secure compliance. So we are looking for non-compliance deviations, protocol deviations, issues from deviations from study procedures or from GCP. It's not always protocol deviation. But we don't want just to record it and say, okay, it happened, but should be investigated, as you know, and should be somehow, should trigger the way how to improve, how to correct what can be corrected, and how to design preventive actions to prevent repeating it again and again. And sometimes, okay, this was corrective action. And preventive action is I'm looking for a possibility of non-compliance happening in some other areas where I haven't seen anything wrong yet. But there may be a potential. So for a preventive reason, I'm also looking there. This process is similar. Could something like that happen there? What can go wrong? Basically, as you know, Murphy's laws, anything can go wrong, and what can go wrong will. If procedures are not well designed or written, are not fit purpose, then obviously we don't get the processes right. Inaccurate training, roles and responsibilities not identified. There is a process, but how to capture it? I don't have adequate form or associated form or any template where to document it. And then you will have file notes and you will have memos and you will have all kinds of creative ways, even emails sometimes, which is not the best way to do that. Updated procedure includes new steps, but nobody got trained on it. The template is not fitting. The steps are ill-defined, allow for different interpretation, different understanding. It happens to protocols. You may have 5 sides and each investigator would understand it differently based on their experience, meaning that should not happen because then we'll see the deviations happening. Standards are not defined, so we may be putting inaccurate, unusable information. Do you have any examples you would like to share, just quickly? Have you seen any of these things happening in your organization, in other organizations, during audits? Anything, faculty, study group members, please feel free to give some examples.
Yes, this is Grace. I've recently seen an example of the sites having procedures in place where they do not have their study team members or study coordinators at the site actually train on these, and sometimes the procedure themselves they're not updated as they should. So they'll be like a year or two out of the schedule of updates.
Thank you. Excuse me. And a simple example could be there is protocol amendment, but the procedures are not updated, or instructions or forms might be needed, and immediately there is a potential for non-compliance. Worksheets are still following the old procedure. That happens all the time. So now we will do something differently. I'm going to launch a poll with 5 questions from the practice exam, and I will count the time for you to have exactly 5 minutes to answer them. So let me go to pause. And how can I start it? Relaunch. Okay, here we go. And let me put it full screen. When you want me to scroll down, please tell me. You should be able now to answer the poll, to see it. So read the question, read the answers, and try to keep the time approximately 1 minute per question.
Just to note, Camilla, they'll be able to scroll down individually. They can't see your
Okay.
view of the poll.
All right. That's even better. That's wonderful. Makes life easier. And I see some results coming. So far, it's very unified answer. I will share the results once I know that everybody answered, but I see only 10% participated. So, okay, we can't count faculty members, but still I would expect more people. Take your time. 8 people answered. I should be able to see about 10. We finish. We'll have about 1 minute and a half. About 1 minute. Couple of seconds. Okay, so let me share results. And for the first one, we will discuss the questions and the answers. We have 89%, the signature and date of the participant and the person who conducted the info consent discussion. And 11%, the signature and date of the witness and person obtaining consent.
Are you looking for a volunteer, Kamala, from one of us, or to talk about it, or just?
Yes, if you can comment on that, that would be great.
Yeah, well, I think the majority got it. You do need to record the signature of the person who has conducted the consent. It may not necessarily be the investigator, and then the participant in the study. Regarding the one answer below, there's not often, depending on the study, that the vulnerability of the subjects, the requirements of the local IRB, there's often no requirement for a witness. And in this case, also, that answer didn't include the signature of the participant.
Exactly, that's the biggest problem, that the participant is not included. There might be countries where the witness is always required. I've seen that. But the participant is missing, and that's the problem. Now we have the second one, and here we have a variety. So why is it advisable to develop procedures for preparing, managing, and reporting of sponsor or client audit activities? Anyone from the faculty would like to comment on this?
I'm always ready to talk, but I'll let someone else talk. Pam, if you want to comment, but I'm.
Yeah, I had to make the question bigger. I couldn't read it on my screen.
Okay.
Okay, so we do have a mix of answers here. We have 2, 1, and 6 for the actual answers. So looking at the one that received the most answers, why is it advisable to develop procedures for preparing, managing, and reporting of sponsor client audit activities? Thinking about why do we audit? And to ensure audit activities are performed in a manner that will provide information about the state of compliance. And I think that's kind of covers it. It may be not super specific about why we do it, but looking at auditing is reviewing compliance. The answer that got 2 votes, because such procedures are required by FDA regulations and must be available during an inspection. As we know, audit reports are usually not required to be reviewed by the FDA and other regulatory agencies unless it's a dire need and other reasons that may be, such as a warning letter or legal action. And auditing it's not really an FDA regulation, but definitely knowing if the sponsor is watching or has oversight for compliance. And also the last one that got 1 vote, to have a consistent and meaningful approach for identifying debarred and disqualified contract research organizations and other clinical vendors. That goes back to actually before you even engage with an investigator and or a CRO, looking at if they're debarred or disqualified, because you wouldn't even want to go utilize or work with a site that's already debarred. So that's actually a little bit more of your early procedures, and really doesn't have to be done by auditing, and it could be done by other departments within your organization. So I think most people got the audit activities in the manner about the state of compliance.
Thank you. One more thing to add. I have never seen the debarred or disqualified CRO, contract research organization, who can be debarred, and we can find out lists. These are investigators and investigational sites, and basically mostly individuals, not site as a whole, but individuals, principal investigator, because he was selling the investigational product, or because was committing fraud, or because of some other malpractice or activity that is against the law, basically, then maybe debarred. But not a clinical vendor, never seen an EDC provider who would be debarred. That does not even exist. So you can immediately kick this option out of the possibilities. Now, number 3, which of the following documentation best demonstrates that the person is qualified by education, training, and experience? You can choose one. And anyone would like to comment?
I can take this one. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So we basically have 2 different responses. The first one, who received 89%, is curriculum vitae, GCP training, professional license. And the second one is GCP training, job description, and delegation log. So when you think about those responses, I think I can imagine why people picked this response, which includes delegation log, but obviously a delegation log just really documents a task that was delegated to a staff, but it doesn't really reflect on that staff member's actual experience or training. So I think when you think it from that perspective, it makes sense that you really want, if applicable, professional licenses as part of that kind of documentation. GCP training, I think, speaks for itself. I mean, we are talking about a GCP setting, so we would expect really GCP training, at least from people who do perform protocol-related tasks that are not part of their traditional profession, that they are really GCP trained. And then curriculum vitae, obviously, it's a good practice. Ideally, they should be updated. Speaking about GCP training one more time, I'm not sure who really completely read the new ICH E6R3 guidance, but GCP training is not really required anymore once this ICH E6R3 goes into effect by everybody. So it means if somebody just performs a task that is part of their profession, like for example, blood draws, and she's a phlebotomist or he's a phlebotomist, then moving forward, that might not be an expectation anymore. That's it from my side.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to add one more thing, because I think most people are very surprised about this, but the delegation log or delegation of authority log is not a requirement under FDA or GCPs.
Yeah, but it's a
tool that the I guess most industry has come up with to note how and when duties are delegated to study staff.
By the way, often, very often, while performing site audits, I had findings related to delegation law. Because you may find out that it was completed like before site initiation, with the assumptions who will be doing what. But in reality, during the study conduct, things evolve differently. And I've seen things like lab technician is responsible to answer medical queries. No, it's the investigator. And things like this. So making sure for practical reasons that adequately qualified people do the work they are qualified for. Always when I was auditing, I take the CV, training records, and the delegation. Are there any mismatches? Are there any things that really don't go together? Is something delegated? I saw an IT person doing data entry and responsible for answering queries. But he was an IT professional. He had no idea. He did not even understand the medical part, at least even the terms. So
I find that a lot. I'm sorry, with consenting, that they're not delegated to consent, but they're consenting, or the dates don't match. I do check that the dates that they're actually starting on the study, are they delegated to that task? And I have found many that they weren't delegated, there wasn't training, and they're doing consenting. So yes, I do check that as part of what's going on.
Yeah,
at the site. It gives you a lot of information.
For me, the delegation log is a living document. Things are evolving during the study.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and just to say, ICH does instruct the investigator, at least R2. I'm looking at R2 since that's the, what it's going to be on exam, should maintain a list of appropriate, they should, so don't say call a delegation law, but they should maintain that list of qualified persons to whom they're delegating trial related duties. So they need that, but the way, the way in which they do that, it's our traditional delegation log, which has varied a lot, and with technologies have changed the way that looks, because it used to be just a handwritten log, and now it's a lot of larger institutions pre-print them and pre-populate them, and they don't capture necessarily the signature or the person who's being delegated. So it's a changing environment.
And one more comment for CV. Actually, if it's IND study, then the CVs, usually in the form of one-page CV, are part of the marketing authorization application dossier. So these are things that we collect, and since it's missing in the other part, like 3 and 4 options, then that's an important thing that basically we need. Let's move down. At a minimum, which elements should be included in a training record? Anyone would like to comment on that? Because we have now a variety of answers.
I would say that my selection would be the training topic, training name, and the date of training. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. They probably have, but at site audits, I have seen where they record then the date of training, the training name, and they put protocol. And this might be after several amendments. And you can look back at the date and potentially kind of say, but that it's likely maybe the current protocol, but it's not adequate. They need to specify the amendment, the version of the protocol, the version of the document that was being trained on.
Exactly, because I should not be guessing as an auditor or assuming. I should just evaluate the facts and make conclusions. So maybe it was the current protocol, maybe it was not. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the very simple answer. I don't know if it's not specific.
Yeah.
And at any point, if anyone has questions or wants, disagrees or doesn't understand, please put something in chat or, speak up.
Yeah, please do. Or just open up your microphone and speak up. And the last one was, here we have better uniformity. During what process are research participants' responsibilities described to the potential participant? Anyone would like to comment?
I think they got it all right.
Yeah, nothing else to say.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at, then this is one of those questions that you can say, okay, end of treatment makes no sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
Monitoring visit makes no sense at all. So those two answers can be thrown out pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may only have to decide, is it day 1 visit or is it informed consent? So what process? And you're thinking day 1 visit, that's not really a process. So informed consent is one of the, kind of stands out on its own as the answer, the best fit answer for the question.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the participant should be reminded of their responsibilities. They may be reminded on every single visit.
Yes.
And that's a good thing to do, especially if the visits are long time apart.
But a monitoring visit, what doesn't, it's not going to get the participant involved in it. So that's one of those that you can go, and this makes no sense at all. Get rid of that answer.
Exactly. Well, and an end of treatment, that's way too late, right?
Yeah, that would not be good.
So let me stop sharing the results. And close the poll.
And just to make one more comment about that, which everyone got, it's obvious, but informed consent is an opportunity to, that subject may decide that they can't meet the commitments that are being asked of them for their participation, whether it's for the visit schedule or at home, ePro, use, or there's a lot of things that are being can be asked of them for their participation.
We already discussed that, but when you have the handouts and they are available, you will also see the correct answer plus the reference. So you will see where you can find it. So for your studying purposes, go through the handouts, and then you may want to check, okay, let me read that part, or let me look for this or for that. This is or R2, so that's the current one. And you have all these options marked there with the reference. So for the Q&A and for sharing experiences, let me really stop sharing because I can't see almost anyone. So if I stop sharing, it's much better feel that we are here as a group. So anyone who would like to ask any question or make any comment or say, yeah, I've seen this or that about procedures, something related to questions we are discussing in my work, or I have a situation right now and I'm kind of struggling. This is an open forum. We are here, we still have something like 10 minutes and we are here for you. So just use the opportunity.
So this is Grace. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to go back to something that you had said earlier. Learn the regulations from the different countries. So in light of that, are you saying that like all the countries that to ensure that we know, like, okay, for Japan, for EU, for UK, just know what their you said preambles for each of these countries?
Okay, your audio is not very clear, so let me.
Sorry, because like I was driving. So you did mention during your presentation earlier that we should know all the different countries regulatory guidances. Is that just like a surface level? Like you said, you give an example, India, right?
No, sorry, that was probably a misunderstanding or my unclear statement. What I said and what is also in the handout, it covers FDA 21 Code of Federal Regulations, ICH 6R2, and
Right.
21 CFR Part 11. I was just giving examples that adoption of the new guideline might differ from one country to another, but you are not required to study Indian regulations, PMDA regulations in Japan, Australia, nothing else. Just those three I just mentioned. GCP,
Okay, great.
and 21 CFR Part 11 and the Code of Federal Regulations. And that would be mostly things related to informed consents. That's, I think, Part 54 or 56. IRBs are also in the 50s. And then
right.
For drugs, you have 300 something. For devices, which I don't think are much covered in the exam, that would be 800 something. So mostly focused on 300 and these articles, and then the 50s, like 54, 56. And then you have also financial disclosure. It's, I think, 55 or something in the 50s as well. But one good thing, you will never be asked, there is no question whatsoever that should be asking you, okay, where exactly in the CFR is this or that? Like, give me the number, the paragraph, the subparagraph. No. So you do not have to memorize it. Understand the spirit and understand basically the I would say really it's the spirit of the regulations and the meaning why it's there. But you do not need to memorize all the paragraphs and sub-paragraphs. That would be just insane.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that you should memorize is the definition of serious adverse event that you probably already know very well.
I think another thing that test takers need to be aware of is if you're working for a company, your SOPs might be a little bit different than the regulations. So be sure and go back and look at the regulations. I know when I first went outside of working for a company, I had no idea what the regulations read, but it was making that distinction between your company SOPs and the actual regulations, because your company SOPs might be a lot more conservative and may not be exactly, it's your company's interpretation of the regulations. So
that's one thing that worries me sometimes. It's especially in larger organizations. People do not have time, and they are not even encouraged to go and read regulations.
oh no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So they are reading the company's interpretation of the regulation in their SOP, if they read the SOPs in the first place. You know, the electronic things, you open it, you close it, and you are done. It registers, yes, you access that, and you are trained. I've seen it many times. Hopefully
Yeah, and and if you have, one of the reasons they require to take this exam that you have to have at least 2 years of experience in the GCP QA world is because of, you need to have adequate time to, hopefully, that you've been in positions to review and interpret and apply the regulations beyond just what your SOP tells you to do or not to. And, particularly in auditing, hopefully you're already doing this, but, if you're having to cite every finding against a regulation and or, ICH E6, it really, that's a teaching moment every time, because I'll be auditing going, oh, they didn't do this. This is not right. Or why are they doing this? And then I go, think that's a finding. And I go, look, for that regulation, I think we'll support that. And sometimes it's not there. And I realize, no, I just have seen it so many, it's really, I've seen it away a lot, and I expect that, and maybe they're not doing it. Is it really a non-compliance? Maybe it's not a good practice. Maybe I want to make a recommendation. But, if you have to cite a regulation or ICH E6, it really helps you hone your understanding and where is it a non-compliance as opposed to maybe not an adequate practice in an area they can improve upon when you're auditing. And that's something that helps, I think, prepare you for that critical thinking for the exam questions.
What might be a bit tricky is to cite against GCP because, okay, in EU, it's part of the regulation. In some other countries as well. But in other countries, it's a guideline and you cannot cite against a guideline. You can cite against regulation and own company SOPs because this is what they say they will be doing. And if they deviate,
in the US, I think outside the US, protocols are written and state that they're going to be performed in a compliance with GCP, and therefore we will cite, for our own purposes for auditing a vendor or a site, we'll cite ICH E6 because it's not a regulatory inspection, it's an audit, and we're wanting them to meet that standard. So we would cite it, but.
Yeah, like site audits, yes, but if you do internal audit, for example, that might be a bit more tricky. If it's not related to any protocol or if it's qualification of a vendor, then
that's usually SOPs more than
yeah.
And you will see the SOPs are polished and beautiful, and then you wonder, is the company really following them? It's a showroom, especially in qualification audits, because you have nothing, no records to look at most of the time.
Yeah.
So you get this beautiful showroom with all the polished SOPs. And okay, that's all great, but then the interviews are even more important and ask like, can you describe me how you do this or how you do that? Can you show me the system you use and talk me through the process? So that can give you much better idea if they really do what they say they will be doing. Any closing remarks? We are on the top of the hour, and I see already people need to drop. So again, thank you very much. These study groups are week apart, so see you again next Monday and looking forward. And thank you again to all of you for joining and for participating. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you, Camilla. Have a lovely
you.
day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.